All right, thank you very much, Clara. So what we're going to do today is we're going to showcase a technology, and we're going to hear from a very special guest all the way from South Africa, who's going to talk about why they've put that technology into their rugby team. But before, I'm just going to give you a brief explanation of the technology, some of the science behind it, some of the company information behind it, just to give you a bit of credibility. But before I do that, just for a show of hands, just so I can gauge the audience, how many, I know there's a lot of health professionals, just so everybody's clear, this is going to be more directed at either trainers, health professionals, doctors, dentists, physios, osteopaths, chiropractors, etc., nutritionists, strength and conditioning coaches. Show of hands, do you come into any of that category out of everybody there? Okay, cool. And everybody else interested in health in some way? So there's a few of you just coming out for a chill out session, better than EastEnders, that's fine as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about this company Pharmanex and the S3 scanner. As Clara said, my background's been in physio. I've been in that for about 12 years now. I run my business in Mayfair, and I saw this about 3-4 years ago. And with some of the athletes that I train, some of them are more kind of runners for Great Britain, I was looking for a good technology, more importantly, a good quality product to be able to supplement their training programs and be able to give them the best performance and recovery, etc. And this little scanner here really caught my attention. So I'm going to take you through this company process and technology, and then we'll get the doctor up and talk about what they've done with the Blue Bulls team from South Africa. So anybody heard of Pharmanex? For the guys who have seen this for the first time, anybody heard of the company Pharmanex? For you guys? Okay, so they're an American company, and they were started by this guy here, Joe Chang. Just to give you a bit of a brief on Joe Chang, he headed some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in America. He was actually the lead scientist behind the drug that enables us to have transplants today. There's two main drugs for that. He was the lead scientist behind one. So transplants pretty much wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this guy. He was also the main lead scientist behind the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. So he's a pretty amazing guy. And he partnered with a guy called Carl Djerassi. If you look up Carl Djerassi, he's the guy behind the contraceptive pill. Again, another influential guy that was heading some huge pharmaceutical companies. Obviously, their ethos was drugs to cure disease. And in 1996, they wanted to move away from the curing of disease and bring it back into prevention. So they wanted to bridge the gap between the drug industry and the nutrition industry, but the nutrition industry back then and still at some level today had huge flaws in their research standards, their scientific protocols, and what they were doing in terms of raw material, etc. So they wanted to bring the pharmaceutical approach and the review of literature, peer-reviewed literature, etc., the highest standards in raw material into the nutrition world to look at product for prevention of disease. And that's where the Pharmanex company first started. It was the biggest ever financial startup of any other nutrition company ever. And that is where they started in the US and now have expanded throughout the world to what they've got today. So today, they have 75 PhD scientists on full-time staff. They also network with another 150 across the globe. In terms of nutrition, that is the highest level you're going to get in any company. And they really work with the top universities around the world and have an advisory board with some of the brightest minds in science. I'm not going to go through every one, but Lester Packer, for example, if anybody's doing any work on antioxidants, he's one of the key guys. He's written a huge amounts of books. A lot of people consider him to be the father of antioxidants. You have Dr. Paul Cox. He's pretty much arguably the #1 world ethnobotanist. He spends about 6 months of the year living in different islands, looking at different island plants, and then bringing it into the Western world and how they can be used in prevention and health reasons. You've got some of the pioneering natural products. You've got Nakanishi, father of the ginkgo. So these guys are the world's guys in terms of areas of science. And these are the people and the team of people that they go to for advice. So when I first looked at this for myself as a health professional, and I kind of saw these guys, just common sense, they wouldn't be associated with something that wasn't really high standard and the best protocol for us as a health professional. So just a little bit about the research collaborations. You've got some of the top universities, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, etc. They do a bit in Cambridge now. They have research collaborations all over Asia as well. So they really have a network that with 150 scientists that covers the whole globe, with 2 big research engines in Utah and then a couple of big ones in Beijing and Shanghai. So it doesn't matter what time of day it is, they can be doing research 24/7 and working in lots of different fields of science. It's not just, I'm a nutritionist, I know everything about nutrition, etc. They work with biochemists, etc. All different disciplines of health and science to make sure that they're seeing the best peer-reviewed literature and material from every aspect, bringing it together as a collaboration to then produce the best technology and product that they have available at the time. So one of the biggest differences today, I mean, just a show of hands, in terms of, you know, you're quite welcome to just speak your truth. In terms of nutrition as a general rule, would you say, in terms of product, would you say it's a fairly fickle industry in terms of there's good stuff out there and bad stuff out there? People agree with that?
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to, you know, there's some very good companies that produce some great product, but there's also some very poor products. A lot of them will just land on the supermarket shelf and they just haven't got the good quality raw material, or nor do they have the science and expertise to be able to take the right extracts through a manufacturing process to actually finish with a product that will actually absorb in the body. So that is what PharmNext first started and wanted to be different, and brought in this pharmaceutical approach to their products, which brings back that what they started from the beginning. I'm not going to go through this in detail. If you guys want this in huge amounts of detail, ask the person who brought you along to send you the literature on every aspect, but just so you know, it's very, very difficult to make a good quality product that's taken the best of nature, combining it with science to make sure that you've got an actual product that's not just effective, but it's actually safe as well, and it's absorbed into the body. So this is a whole process, this 6S quality process. We're the first company to actually produce a pharmaceutical approach like this to nutrition. So right, I'm going to talk a little bit about this scanner. Anybody seen this that's new here today before? No? Okay, perfect. So this is actually, this model here has actually only been available in the UK since, well, this month. The previous generations, it's been in a huge amount of research over the last 15, 16 years. It's using a technology called Raman spectroscopy, and that's been in the science world for decades and decades. That technology inside there has won a Nobel Prize, and I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail, I'm going to bring the doctor up in a minute, but it's essentially a laser that will look at the skin carotenoid, it'll rebound back and give you your concentration of skin carotenoids. Why this is so clinically valid is because it's going to be measuring the skin carotenoid at cellular level, and we can actually, and obviously if you look at the literature, and I'm going to go through, we'll skip on this. If you look at the literature, why is that even relevant? You look at the literature and it directly correlates with the amount of antioxidant. So then you're looking at, okay, why is the antioxidant level of the human body actually relevant as well? You know, there's huge amounts of literature out there. You only have to go into PubMed, which is a scientific journal, click in antioxidants with any kind of disease or any other aspect that you want to talk about, and there'll be literature and literature and literature that comes up with the concept of this. If you listen to some of the biggest names in science, Dr. Richard Cutler, etc., he will talk about how antioxidants are directly proportional to how long you'll live. So it's a biomarker that's hugely important. It's not the biomarker of everything, but it's a hugely biomarker of health, number one. Antioxidants is essentially something that we need to stop the free radical damage that will essentially obviously cause cell damage and lead towards degenerative disease. So that machine there is going to give you a correlated score of skin carotenoids. It's going to give you a biomarker of how strong your antioxidant status is, which will also correlate with oxidative stress on the body. So you can give yourself a biomarker of, am I eating enough fruits and vegetables? Am I consuming enough to give my cells the protection that they need for health, to make sure that I'm putting myself in the best possible chance of avoiding the degenerative disease? That's from a health perspective. You're looking from a sports perspective again, not obviously the sports guys want their health, but then you're looking at the nutrients, etc., recovery. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details about that, but all the guys that know the ins and outs of that from a sports perspective, it's a good biomarker for them to see the oxidative stress of the body that will correlate with that score. So that's really a lot of, I can go on and on with the literature. If you need the literature, there's stacks and stacks of it. It's all in the peer-reviewed literature. And again, carotenoids, again, why is this again relevant compared to blood? I've got a blood test will obviously give lots of different and very, very useful information, but in terms of cell level, if you're really looking at what's the best thing about this machine, it's really taking things from the absorption is looking at last 3 to 6 weeks. And what I love about that is that's really a lifestyle. For somebody to live over a 6-week period, it's essentially what they're doing day in and day out. And that is essentially the measurement. When you take a blood score, you're really measuring essentially what they've eaten that day, and that may not be relevant to their overall lifestyle. Okay, so it's a very, very, and they're measuring cell level with that. So again, clinical relevance of not just the what antioxidants are, but is that scanner real? There's a huge amount of literature out there that, again, the person can give you about Raman spectroscopy, the bio-photonic scanner being hugely supported as a very valid and clinical relevance for antioxidant and carotenoids concentration in the body. They've gone through the highest levels of conferences across the world. These guys that head Pharmanex are the keynote speakers of huge amounts of conferences, not just in this field, but all sorts of other fields. They're some of the most respected scientists of the world. And then when it comes on to, and then I'll bring the doctor up in a minute, when it comes on to supplementation, of course, eating the best quality fruits and vegetables is number one. But with the quality of fruits and vegetables that we have in our environment today, the manufacturing process, the most of our fruits and vegetables will be outsourced from continent. We demand fruits and vegetables all time of year, even though we can't actually grow them obviously in this country. So they come from South America or Africa, etc., and they have to add in preservatives, additives, etc. to keep the shelf life. The soil culturing isn't as good, so the nutrients aren't coming into the fruits and vegetables as much. So this has brought about the world of supplementation. And then that's where the industry is a little bit up and down. How do I know if it's a good quality product? How do I know if it's actually working for me? So this is an amazing machine from an antioxidant vitamin mineral perspective. Are you actually absorbing the product that you're using? And you can prove it with the score there. Now that machine wasn't made by Pharmanex. That's one of my first ever questions. So that machine was made in the University of Utah, and it's had $170 million of innovation and research into that, and working with that. And what Pharmanex did is buy that technology. They believed that they had the best product, best protocol, best pharmaceutical approach, so they wanted something that would prove that their product was right at the top echelon of the nutrition world. And it's an amazing tool to have a scientific measurement, and that is the basis of all us as health professionals, is having some sort of measurement and some sort of supportive literature and data to be able to prove that what you're giving a client, patient, etc., is actually working for them. So the big shift right now in America, they've obviously been a little bit ahead of us. They've been using supplementation for as a general perspective a lot longer than us, and it's commonly known that we all need supplementation just because of the pollution around and the poor quality of fruits and vegetables. We're really looking at 12, 13, 14, 15 portions of good quality to give us the right vitamin mineral content that our body needs. Again, you can look at the European journals, they're all saying the same thing. So it's a real difference and shift compared to the old government initiative of let's just take 5 a day that had nothing to do with health in the first place. It was just to avoid diseases. So realize that if you really value your health, value your client's health, then they need to have a different education and realize what's going on in the Western world today with the innovation of pollution and everything else that's going on around us. So I'm very going to breeze over some of the products. I'm not going to go into any detail. There's lots of different products out there. One thing I will just note, that their primary product, which is this one, which is a really just foundation level product with different vitamins, antioxidants, etc., flavonoids. This was the first ever product in the nutrition world to pass the 3 major guidelines, the NSF testing, banned substance testing, the consumer labs. It's the first of its kind, which is why the American Olympic team decided to use this company. And they actually were given the sponsorship rights for the Olympics in 2002, for the Winter Olympics, and then the 2 years after that as well. The company itself actually took the Olympic rings away from their products. They actually chose to be take away from the Olympic. We'd think, why would you want to do that? And it was primarily because they didn't want to be associated with the Olympic athletes at the time that were getting banned for obviously the drug abuse with the Gatlin and some of the other Mariam Jones, etc., the big sprinters. So to have a company that would want to do that. You won't get many companies that would avoid the sponsorship of the American Olympic team, but they wanted to keep their ethos of being the highest standard of raw material and making sure that nobody was misunderstanding what they were about in their product development. So there's lots of different products. I'm not going to go into them, but what I'm going to do is bring our special guest up, who's going to talk with one of our colleagues. One of my colleagues is a journalist, and he's going to interview Dr. Strauss. He's come all the way from South Africa. He is the team doctor for the Blue Bulls. And if you guys aren't rugby fans, just to give you a kind of comparison of who the Blue Bulls are in terms of the English world. Obviously, rugby is the main sport in South Africa. The Blue Bulls are one of the best teams in the Southern Hemisphere. They play in the Super 15 League against some of the top Australian and the top New Zealand teams. And they're over here in the UK to play a friendly, pre-season friendly, yeah? Pre-season friendly against the Saracens. In football terms, if this helps you understand the size of the Blue Bulls, they'll be one of the top Premiership football teams, but in the rugby world in South Africa. They have a huge amount of following. He's an amazing doctor, and he's using the scanner and the technology and the product with the Blue Bulls team. So he's over here, and out of the kindness of his heart, he's decided to drop in, say hello, and tell us a little bit about how this is working with his team and what he's found and everything that he likes about what he's doing so far. So if you could give a large welcome to Dr. Strauss and our journalist, JD.
At the beginning they told us about the product, and they also explained to us how we have to drink it and what is at stake, what we can win, and how we can improve. And they told us that they will be scanning us every 3 months. From the start I was committed. I knew that you'd be able to come to America, but it was still a big surprise when they read the results, and I was very happy when I heard that I won.
The Nu Skin Innovation Center takes the image of Nu Skin as a company to a next level. It's got an open atmosphere, it stimulates creative thinking, and I think the logo of Nu Skin that says the difference demonstrated, it's illustrated in the new Innovation Center. So that was amazing to see, and it's definitely something we can take home with us. The players basically use 4 products, G-Free Juice, H-Lock Vitality, Overdrive and LifePack Nano. It helps us when they train to have more energy, when they travel they've got more energy. So I think those 3 products made a big difference in our performance and just in general in the players' health.
Rugby-wise, you have to be an absolute super athlete to be able to perform on a high level with rugby. You have to be quick, you have to be strong, you have to be fit, you have to have endurance, you have to have explosiveness. You actually have to have the whole fitness package to be able to play rugby at a high level. The different products that Nu Skin are providing us really helps me in my personal training and our team a lot. I always drink it before and after big training sessions, and especially on game day before games. It gives you that little bit of extra recovery and a little bit of extra energy through the game. My scan score started on 21,000, then after the first scan I increased a lot up to 52,000, 53,000. I personally just want to thank Nu Skin to make me part of this great products that they provide, this amazing company. And I'm privileged and honored to be associated with Nu Skin.
Right. And firstly, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a real privilege to have you here. These guys are legendary in South Africa, and it really is an incredible
Only
opportunity.
there. Huh?
Well, maybe after Saturday, I think you maybe be legendary here also. Would you mind just explaining very briefly why you guys here? Like, why do we have the good fortune of having you now in our midst?
Now, thanks for the opportunity. And firstly, I want to say, please excuse my accent. I'm a South African, so English is my second language. Now we're playing rugby union, as the physio said, and we're playing a warm-up game against Saracens. It's actually the start of our Super Rugby competition, which is a Southern Hemisphere competition. It starts the 15th of February, so we're playing a warm-up game against Saracens on Saturday, so we're looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Am I right saying there's a Saracens member in the audience tonight? Yes?
Don't be shy.
That's going to be very interesting. Now, Ulf, we've heard very briefly about your background. You've been a doctor since 2003. You've got a master's degree in sports science. Would you mind just explaining very briefly, because I know you're very passionate about sports, how did all of that come about? How the medical thing, how your involvement with the Bulls?
I think since my study years, I was involved in sport. I was an athlete myself, not a rugby player, but I did athletics. And I think sport has always been my passion. I think in South Africa, rugby is our national sport, so it's nice to be involved, and you work with healthy people. So it's always guys that want to improve, they want to get better. So I think that's the big motivation behind it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And how long have you been with the Bulls specifically?
It's almost 7 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And for people who've never heard of the Bulls, can you just give a very brief background of how long they've been going and just to put things a little bit into perspective?
Okay, I must think now. I think the Bulls Union has been there since 1938. They've played in Super Rugby since the start of the competition. I think that was way back in 1995 when the competition started. They've won the competition 3 times. They're actually the only South African franchise that has won the competition. So it's quite a big rugby team in South Africa and in the world for that matter. Yeah.
Awesome. And we saw very briefly the video of the Bulls and Farmanex. How did all of that come about? What is that about?
I think in professional sport you always want to improve, you want to get better, you want to stay healthy, you want to get stronger. We've had 1 or 2 passionate people involved with the Bulls. Reino van Vieren, I think is his surname. He's actually a good mate of mine, and we played golf one day and he said, listen, there's this nice product on the market and he believes a professional rugby player should use it, so that's where it all started. Yeah.
And so then I presume all the players got scanned initially, and
yes.
And how did it progress from there?
Yeah, they got scanned. I think it was initially quite a funny thing for the players. Obviously, they don't always believe in a scanner. What do you actually test? I think the other guy that spoke, he spoke quite well. So I think we should leave it at that. But for rugby players, they're very skeptical sometimes, or professional sports people. But the fact that you can actually measure something and see it for yourself, that helped a lot, and seeing improvement was also nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's nice about it.
So I noticed we saw Mornay on the screen who increased his score from 20,000 to 50,000.
Yes.
Have you seen similar responses in score increases with other players?
Yeah, I think most players improved. You always have the odd one out that doesn't live healthy, so you always see that. But most of them improved, and I think they're more healthy. They recover quicker, so that's nice. Yeah.
And you mentioned healthy and living healthy. Have you seen other changes in their lifestyle after they've been scanned? Have they changed the way that they eat or just generally live?
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that it's a competition as well, so they want to be better than the guy next to them, and they can see that they're improving. So that made a big difference. So they're all actually always trying to be more healthy and be more professional. So it helped.
And I think it is very interesting, the fact that it brings out a real competitive element in the first time you get scanned, and then you kind of keep wanting to see how your score improves. Now it's great if your score goes up, but what does it actually mean to the players? What's the sort of impact on a physical level and also on the actual sports field? Have you noticed? You mentioned recovery earlier. Have you seen anything else?
I think they can train harder, so they feel better the next day when they use it. So obviously performance improves, which is nice, and they're healthy, so they can actually be on the field and train. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, great. And Mornay mentioned, I think it was explosive energy. Have you noticed anything specifically in terms of energy? So recovery is one aspect. Has it also been an aspect of energy, or not so much?
No, definitely. I think that they also used the overdrive before trainings, and I think that made a big difference in energy. Yeah.
Which is a very, very high concentrated vitamin B complex and
Yes.
some other things. Great. And if you think of nutrition, how important an aspect is that in sports? Because I mean, surely exercise and practicing is a key element to it. How big a part is nutrition actually?
I think that nutrition is the basis of everything that happens in your body, and if you're a professional sports person, it's just that much more important, you know. So I think staying healthy and giving your body what it needs, and as the other guy also said, you know, not only through your diet can you get it, you know. So it's important to take extra supplements. Yeah.
And if you think of sports people, it's really important that they have good nutrition and it really helps them. Is it important to me? You know, is it important to the kind of normal person who doesn't? I like to run and so on, but I'm not a competitive athlete. Is it important for me to still use a supplement, or can I just get everything from my diet?
No, I think it's very important. You know, as he said, you know, the foods we buy, the fruits and veggies, we don't know the quality of it. You know, so it's definitely important in general health. You know, to take an extra supplement, definitely.
And speaking as a medical doctor, and how, like you mentioned earlier, that nutrition is the sort of basis of everything. Why is that? Why should we focus so much on nutrition?
I think nutrition, you know, it gives your body what it needs at the cellular level, you know, to function normal, to fight disease, you know. So I think that's the most important thing. Yes.
And the fact that you were able to actually measure the scores, and have you come across that before? Was that something that was quite unique?
It was quite unique, yeah. I must say. You know, it's not common in South Africa for that matter. You know, so it's nice to measure it and see the difference.
It's not common here either, I can promise you that.
Okay.
And you know, in terms of specifically being able to measure the performance or the absorption of a supplement, was that also something that you found quite useful?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, and it inspired the players as well, you know. So it's definitely a great upside of Nu Skin and Formanex.
Very cool. Anything else that just sort of like any general information that you can share in terms of your experience or?
I think what I can say is we enjoyed the products, we still enjoy it, and it makes a big difference in our lives, you know, as sports people, and in my own life, you know, being healthy and all of that. So yeah, I can definitely promote the product, and all of the players can.
And which product is it that you are specifically using at the moment?
We're using the G-Free Juice, H-Lock Vitality, Life Pack Nano, and the Overdrive. Yeah.
Okay, great. And in your speaking from a sort of personal perspective, like what kind of differences have you noticed in your life or in your performance, both on and off, in terms of, because you're quite active still in sports?
Yeah, I'm also a bit of a runner, so I must say I can train harder, I recover quicker, I'm healthy. You know, I work late hours sometimes at the hospital, so I think it makes a difference in that. Yeah. Cool. No, staying awake and concentrating.
Yeah. which is kind of important if you're going to be working in a hospital. If it's okay with you, I'd love to just open up to the floor, just get a couple of, like anybody who's got any questions that they'd like to ask Dr. Strauss. Yes.
Hi. As professional rugby players, I'm sure they were taking some supplements or lots of vitamins. You haven't seen the same improvement with the former vitamins than when you start to use Formanex. Why? So you decided to change for Formanex because you can scan them, or because you have checked all the ingredients and you really felt a difference, and the players also felt a difference?
I think it's a combination of both. I think obviously we love the ingredients, but also the scanner to measure it. It's a difficult thing to measure. So I mean, you can go on performance or almost on disease or injury stats, you know, so that improved, but I think the measurement was the biggest factor. Yeah.
I think that means that probably the supplements that they were taking before, if they had score under 30,
it wasn't great. Yeah.
It wasn't great.
All the initial scans was not great, so it's
Any other questions? And please just keep in mind that Dr. Strauss is more of a sports scientist, so any questions specifically about the players or about how they've been using the products, but I'd say less so on the actual ingredients. That is not really his forte. Any other questions? Daniel at the back.
Have you ever seen that any of the players are sick less often, so they can actually, they don't miss practice as much, or you haven't really seen that?
No, definitely. I must say my medicine bill is a lot less since I've used it. So.
Is there, tied to that, is there any correlation on the actual injuries? Because normally, I mean, would you say that the right nutrition also helps to diminish injuries? And have you seen anything regarding that? Or?
I think it's difficult to measure that. I think obviously at a cellular level, it makes a difference. So let's say we don't have to go into the detail of that, but I think obviously rugby is a contact sport. So it's difficult to get around that. But I think recovery time was definitely quicker. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. In relation to, because I've heard, just on one of the other videos now, they talk about how you want to, continue taking the supplements after, because you're obviously bashing your bodies and playing for a long period of time. Are they, because of the results and the scanning, are they wanting to bring in their children and their families to be scanned as well? Has it influenced the whole family to?
I think it has. It's obviously I don't know all of them at a personal level. But there's a lot of guys that's wives actually, their wives actually got involved in the whole network, of selling the product and all of that. So yeah, definitely, yeah.
Or do you think that was because they had the personal experience in terms of actually trying out the products themselves and then?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Cool.
Obviously, players at that level have got to keep or maintain a high level of fitness. Do you do regular fitness tests with the players, and have you seen a better increase in that since they've been on the products?
Yeah, we've got a whole team actually. We've got a conditioning coach as well, and he does that. But there's definitely been an improvement. If it's only the product, I'm not sure. But there was definitely an improvement. Yeah.
Windy.
Hi, doctor.
Hi.
I would just like to ask about the product Overdrive. Do they take it really every time they train, or regularly, as in every day?
They're supposed to, yeah. So.
Do you know if they take it every day, or?
Most of them do, yeah. Especially before heavy training sessions, they do, yeah. So I think it helps a lot, energy-wise and also recovery-wise. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
There was a question at the back. Yeah.
No, I'm just wondering addiction. So the more they take, the more the body gets addicted to it. If you stop, what will happen? Because one day you have to stop, and you can't just stay all the time. That's why we have a body, mind and spirit. And therefore, you have to have your own nutrition. And then you have a cellar, so you have hippocampus that works to replace.
Yeah.
So how they're addicted to this?
It's a good question. I mean, who knows what will happen, if they will have the ability to buy it when they finish as professional rugby players, I'm not sure, but I think they should carry on with it.
Is it possible to get addicted to nutrition though? Because surely it's essentially a food supplement in the same way that you can't get addicted to a carrot or an apple. So I'm presuming
That's a good one. I think, what I can maybe say, I think the New Skin supplement it's such a nice product that you might be able to get addicted to it. It's not your normal multivitamin that you buy over the counter. So I think scientifically it's difficult to get addicted to it, but I think just the nature of the product can cause that. Yeah. Is that the right answer you were looking for?
Hi there. My experience is that the word supplement is to add on to what you're already having. And we heard earlier that food doesn't have the sufficient stuff. That's why we supplement. And I think that we should continue to have it forever and not stop. Because if our bodies don't have what it needs while we're not taking it, then we need to take it. And it's a little bit like showering. If you're dirty and smelly, you take a shower, and then you get into the condition you'd like to be in. but probably going to need another one tomorrow.
Mm.
The day after.
No, that's true.
Continue to take a supplement to fix the problem is something that never ends. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's also a difficult question. I think I don't agree with it. I think obviously you have to give your body what it needs. You know, if it's through food, then it's fine. You know, but as I say, we're all busy. We all have 24/7 working hours. You know, so I think that's the other reason that we actually need to take a supplement. You know, so you can't eat 6 times a day or how many times you have to get the sufficient nutrition. So yeah, I think you're always going to have to take something extra.
So the concept of carrying on taking it kind of forever is good with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, any final questions before we wrap up?
One more. I work with a few clients myself, and we've been doing it for a few years, and some of these people just weren't eating very healthy. They weren't really eating much fruit and veg, but when they got scanned, they were on the supplements, or even if they didn't go on it, it actually helped them to eat a lot more fruit and veg. You had some guys saying they were not very healthy. Has that helped them to now, because it's that competitiveness of getting the biggest improvement, go to America to head office, that trip they won?
Yeah.
Does that change things a little bit for them?
No, definitely. I mean, it's a holistic approach, as you know. You know, so I mean, I think if I take my own life and look at that, you know, also started eating healthy, you know, looking after myself. So it definitely made a big difference. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I think Ben was really happy that he could introduce you as Dr. Strauss, because he was kind of struggling with the org. Thank you very, very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
What I'd like to do now is to hand over to somebody who can talk a little bit more about the business side, about how you can potentially implement this into your business. So I'm going to hand right back to Ben, who's really skilled in that, personal trainer, physiotherapist. Please welcome Ben Kilner.
Yeah, we can give a brief explanation on some of the financials. Obviously, fundamentally, when we're I'm going to really base this on obviously again the health professionals that want to improve not just their service to their clients and their patients, but also revenue as well. So when I first saw this, I spent the first pretty much 6 months, even longer than that, using this as a service to my clients. That was all I was really interested in. And then obviously, but you know, I'm not ashamed to say that in our business world, making money out of making our patients healthy is a good thing. And it's not making money outside of anything other than what I believe is ethically correct in promoting health. I actually believe it's non-ethical to not promote the health that I believe in that clients and patients should be having. So how this business works, if health professionals are looking at this to increase a revenue stream into their business, because we're very much a face-to-face business, we're only looking at essentially a linear income. Do you want this on? Sure. You're only facing a linear income of seeing our patients per hour. So if somebody charges 70, 80, 90 pounds per hour, but then they go on holiday and their living expenses is to that value, then they always struggle to go on holiday, or they have to work twice as hard as when they come back. I don't know if anybody experiences problems like that, or if they have a downturn in the year and they maybe don't see as many patients as they do, or if they work in London like I imagine most of you guys do, and you have a very high rental cost, then creating extra revenue streams is actually essential for a business today in a traditional business in a totally different universe that we live in terms of business growth going forward. So what the ability of this program enables you to do is obviously create a great service for your clients, but you can create 2 extra revenue streams. So the product line that you've seen just there is not sold on shops. You will not see it in shop shelves. They actually used to do that, but they actually withdrew the whole product line off the shop shelves because of the research standards, and the raw material made the product too expensive. And actually didn't sell as well as it should have done for the amount of innovation and science and actually money that's gone into the product development. So they took the 43% on average advertisement fee away to advertise that product. They also took on all the little middlemen in the retail stores and kept that money intact. They spent more on the research and development to make sure it's a better product, and then they used the 43% advertisement fee to give to health professionals to then market that product for them. So you essentially can then create two revenue streams, a linear income from charging your clients for the scan and the service itself, and you can put whatever value your time is worth on that, and obviously whatever location, that's up to you as a health professional in your own individual business. So let's say, I'm going to give you a very quick example. Let's say the average person will make a charge of £20, and you're having 10 patients scanned per week. That's £200 per week. You're making an extra £800, again, linear income per month into your practice. Now, the product, with the advertisement fee, you're getting a percentage, and obviously the retail profit from a part of the portion of that product, like in any other business of product movement. Now, I'll give you a vague example just so you can get your head around some of the financials. Obviously, every practice is different, so if you really want to go into the individuality of it for what's specific for you, obviously speak to the person who's invited you along. But to give you a brief example, if you put 50 patients on the basic foundation product, then your retail profit would be around about £900, and you'd also get a commission from the company that will give you a certain percentage of that product, around about, I've wrote this down because I'm not great with figures, around about the £1,300 level. So that is a passive income because that is a consumable product. You don't have to stock that product. The company, FarmNext, New Skin, have everything set up to ship, so you just have to connect, like you do with a wholesaler, connect the patient to the company, and the product will just arrive at their house, and the company will pay you a portion of the advertisement fee. And that is where you can start to create a passive a passive residual income. And that is hugely valuable in a society today, in a business world, where obviously rent prices are going up, and obviously we're totally transformed in business today with the world of internet and technology, etc. Traditional business is very difficult unless you've got some form of secondary income streams coming into your business. So I believe this is an amazing program for people who are looking at it to, first and foremost, provide a very ethical, safe, effective nutritional program and wellness program for all their clients and patients. But along the same time, you can create a better business decision for yourself to create more revenue, and more importantly, give yourself a better lifestyle for that sacrifice. And most people, I find that they go into business, etc., they're really enthusiastic about creating their osteopath business, their dietitian business, their physio business, etc., the strength and conditioning business, but a lot of times at the expense of their lifestyle because they've got no time to enjoy themselves, their family, etc. What I love about this is that you can have an option where you can bring a business approach, a great ethical service, but not at the expense of your lifestyle, but more importantly to promote your lifestyle, because you're getting your time back, because you're creating an income stream that enables you to have the time to enjoy some of the stuff that you enjoy outside of your work. So that's really just a very quick overview of what you can have from a financial aspect. Again, if you want to see this in a bigger format, we have various events. I'm sure one of Clara maybe tell us a little bit about what other events we've got coming up. But this is really an overview for health professionals that want to look at service and revenue. And if you've got any questions, obviously come speak to some of the guys that are working with this in their practices, like myself, about ins and outs of questions, or speak to the person who brought you along if you want to have a sit down and specifically go through what is your business model and how this potentially could fit into what you're currently doing. So thank you very much.